at the time, somebody that he was close to was already pimping out girls. And this person that he was close to kept telling him to do it to me.
I want to welcome you to Identity Evolution, the podcast where we explore the moments that shape who we become. I'm your host, Lorena Schuth, somatic self-concept and identity coach, and I'm here to guide you through the raw and the real and the transformative stories of reinvention. Today, we're welcoming trauma mama and rebirth initiator Sharice Tareva onto the podcast. This is a story of rebirth that shocks. Born into 3 generations of trauma, Sharice ended up being trafficked at the young age of 19. But this dark chapter became her initiation into the powerful woman she is today. Today, she shares not just that story, but also everything leading up to it, how she healed from her trauma, and how turning her trauma into her triumph now has her on a mission to empower women to transmute their sexual and generational trauma back into their truest selves as well. Sharice truly has a way with words, and she embodies both sensitivity and also this fierce power, and she's such an inspiration. In this conversation, she takes you right into the story. You might feel as if you're there, healing with her. Please be aware that whilst we don't get graphic, we do discuss topics such as sexual trauma and human sex trafficking. But for now, let this story move you. Hello, my beautiful Sharice.
Lorena. It's good to see you too.
Good to have you here. Thank you for coming on today.
Having me.
So we've known each other for quite a few years now, and we met through a coaching program that we both did. And I'm quite excited to bring all our Instagram DM chats kind of like more public, because we always discuss powerful and potent things, and I feel like this has been a long time coming.
Yes, I agree. I'm excited too.
Amazing. So what I want to dive into with you today is your experience essentially of how you shifted your identity through healing your trauma. And we're going to dive into some heavier topics today because we are going to talk about your experience of sexual trauma and sexual trafficking. But before we actually dive into any of these heavy topics and how you healed from that and, you know, how that got you to where you are today, I actually want to start right at the beginning. And I want to start with how did you even grow up? You know, like who were you before everything happened for you? What did your life look like?
That's a beautiful question. And you see it instantly like punch me in my like heart. And I was like, oh, because I could just see my younger self, right? Like so free, so sassy, so loud, so unapologetically didn't give a fuck about what anybody was saying, even as a child. But I grew up in between 2 households. My parents got divorced when I was 4, or they split up when I was 4, and I can remember that day like it was yesterday. There's not the trauma attached to it, or like the heightened experience attached to it anymore, but like if you needed me to recreate the room, I could. Unfortunately, the feelings and the emotions I've worked through with, you know, the modalities that I worked with in my program and with my therapist and all the things, but I could repaint that room because I felt like that was one moment that like shifted everything for me, and I was 4. Like I was fucking
Wow.
4. But yeah, I lived in between 2 households. So I would spend my school years with my mom, and then I would spend the majority of my summers with my father. And they were 2 drastically different environments. One was the suburbs with my mom, and it was safe. It was different. It was stable. It was structured. And then I would go to my dad's for the summer in Camden, New Jersey. And I didn't realize at that age, like 7, 8, 9, how unsafe it was. But it was like I could definitely intuitively notice like the chaos and the fun and the liveliness. And they were just two drastically different environments. So I would spend 3 months, free, having fun in this environment that was lively but also dangerous that I had no knowledge of, and then go
Mhm.
back to this stable, structured, suburban, quiet town. I lived down the street from a lake. And I was confused. I was such a confused child and teenager,
Oh,
because these environments were so drastically different, and how my parents parented was so drastically different. But yeah, that's how I grew up. I grew up with adults that did not listen to me.
wow.
And this isn't because I know that you and I come from the same space in the work that we do. But when we have these conversations with the people that raised us, they almost feel like it's an attack. And this isn't an attack. The adults did the best that they could with the tools that they had, and they didn't have any fucking tools. They didn't have the tools that I needed to be nurtured properly. And I'm not mad or anything like that. It is what it is. And I just grew up around a bunch of adults that didn't see me because they were not seen as children. They were
Mhm.
not allowed to have a voice. And here I came, this loud, boisterous, bright, sassy little girl, and telling them like, who are you talking to? I'm a child, you're gonna respect me. And they're like, what? Like, girl, we got our ass beat for even speaking, and you're telling us we're going to respect you? So there was just like such a disconnect, especially with my mom's side. But yeah, I grew up in teetering and duality, and I've always been a dancer, a singer, and just loud and free. And I feel like that is who like my authentic self is.
Oh, that's beautiful. I mean, sounds like there was like quite a lot of chaos and back and forth, like from an early age. Um, how did that like? How do you think that shaped your personality at that time?
Mm, you have really good questions.
We haven't even
um,
started yet, fully.
yeah, girl, I know, but just the first two are already amazing. Um, Wow, because when you're asking the first two questions, I automatically see. So like, I'm clairvoyant, so I'm automatically seeing like just how chaotic it it made my experience.
Mhm.
It just, again, there was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of trying to fit into everybody's idea and mold of who Tareva was supposed to be, and just
Mhm.
trying to please like my mom and please my dad, but also wanting to be like, free and loud and expressive, and not understanding why nobody understood me or listened to me or saw me in the way that I saw me. So yeah, it just very chaotic, very
Oh, yeah.
confused. I think confused is the best word, especially because the drastic dualities and the environments that I spent most of my time.
Yeah. It's almost
Hmm.
like it created like a strong desire to be seen because you weren't seen like
Hmm.
in your upbringing. Um,
And it created, like, in my teenage years anyway, outburst. Like, I just,
ah,
I just wanted to be seen, and because they weren't seeing me, I would have these moments. And I wasn't the nicest teenager. When I would come
mhm.
back from the summers in Camden, I had to like relearn not to be so callous and be so mean by the time I came back to high school in Williamstown. So I was like mean for the first 3 months to everybody, and then I wanted to be friends with everybody again. And it was like, that's confusing. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, wow. The reason I wanted to kind of ask about your childhood and who you became through that is because I want to lead us into the experience when you were trafficked and how that really shaped you.
Mhm.
So, can you take us into the time just before that chapter even began? Like, what was
Mhm.
your life like in that moment? And maybe we will see some, influences from how you were brought up as to with regards to how that shaped you and how that brought you to where you were at the time. But what was your life like, and what were you like just before this experience and this chapter occurred?
Another beautiful question. Nobody has ever asked it from that point of view, so thank you, because I just saw all of it. So I was roughly 19 during that time. Well, let me go back a little bit.
Yeah, let's go back
Um
there.
yeah, I think it's important to go back to I had graduated from high school. And when I graduated, um okay, so I need to preface it with this because this is important and then this will lead into everything else.
Okay.
When I was about 14, my mom had completely just like passed out one day. I didn't know what was wrong. I had no idea. I called my aunt. She called the ambulance. It was like a whole thing. And my entire family came over. And one of my uncles had told me that my mom had got diagnosed with MS when she was pregnant with me. So, as a 14-year-old, I carried that I was the one responsible for my mother's illness. And I did everything I could while also being her caregiver as a 14-year-old to get away from her so that if I was away, that she could be healthy.
Oh God, yeah, it's so crazy how like there's one thing a person says and we internalize it and we go into this is all my fault, I am the problem, something's wrong with me, I only cause harm, and we create this story that then projects out into everything we do and everything we touch.
Yes. So, I spent the next like 2 years literally battling my mom. I mean, like acting out in school, punching holes in the wall, doing all these things to get away from her. Because I was like, well, if I get away from her, then she won't be sick. In my mind, right? Because of how it was told to me. And I wish it was told to me different, but here we are, and everybody did the best that they could with the tools that they had. And when I graduated, I had that same mentality. I was like, I got to get the fuck away from my mom.
Right.
Because if I can get away from her, number one, I can do whatever the fuck I want. Number two, she will be better. She'll be healthier. So I left right after I graduated. We had project graduation. I put all my stuff in a trash bag and moved straight to my dad's.
So
And
how old were you
I was
then?
18.
18.
I was
Okay.
18. And when I was 16, my mom put me out to go live with my dad.
Okay.
Yeah, so there was a tumultuous year. I won't get into too much detail, but that also set the trajectory for me,
Getting
being
in that into that situation.
being able to get into that situation just because of the lack of supervision I had, the lack of care that I had for myself. Like I pretty much was a free teenager because my dad was busy doing what he was doing and being a politician and all those things. And again, everybody did the best they could with the tools that they had. So I moved out and I got into a lot of trouble that year that I lived at my dad's after I graduated. And I eventually had to go back to my mom because my license was suspended. I couldn't drive. I got into like legal trouble. And I drove back to my mom's after like going to court and all of this. And she like flattened my tires. And she's like, you can't go anywhere. You're staying in the house. And I was like, ugh, this is a harsh reality. But also, my mom had gotten pregnant at that time.
There's so much that goes into the story.
Girl, my mom had gotten pregnant and she was the healthiest that I've ever seen her, ever in my entire life. And it was the most beautiful thing that I got to witness. I feel like spirit put me back at my mom so that not only I could, experience her at her healthiest, but also because right after she had my youngest sibling, her body shut down. So I went from not wanting to be around my mom to being her caregiver and my younger sibling's caregiver. Watching my younger sibling come into the world literally like woke me up and I was like, shit, I have to be an example for this person. Like, I am not a good example right now. What the fuck am I going to do? So I got an overnight job. I worked at CVS. I worked overnight, and then I would come in and grab my younger sibling, put them on my chest. I'd go to sleep, they sleep, and I'd watch them throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
And what led, and this is going to make sense soon, but my mom was dating somebody at the time that I thought didn't deserve to be in her energy and to be around
Right.
us. And it was my younger sibling's father. And, you know, he was just to me a piece of shit person.
Okay.
And me and him kept getting into these altercations where, you know, I was doing things and he was doing things and we were just butting heads. And one day, it was something so small, but one day I was like, you know, at 2 o'clock every day, I watched my soap opera. It was called like Passions or something like that. There was like witches on it. It was a vibe. And every day, everybody in the house knew I watched this show. And I remember going to go like grab the remote and him almost dropping my younger sibling to snatch the remote from me. And I was like, oh, I can't be around you or I'm going to do bodily harm to you because how dare you almost drop my sibling over a remote control. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to go see my dad. And that was my thing. I always ran to the city to go see my dad anytime I had a problem. So I
Okay.
got on a bus, and on my way to see my dad, I bumped into this guy, the guy who later pretended to be my boyfriend and was my trafficker and abuser. And everything in my body told me no, but
Ah, I was gonna
every
ask because like I just want to stop us here for a moment and
Mhm.
just showcase first of all you know, this entire podcast is about how a specific experience or trauma or modality or whatever shaped people's identities, right? And it changed or shifted people's identities. And I think like your story is so powerful because you've got this really powerful story of you know, experiencing significant trauma, being trafficked at a young age. And
Mhm.
we're going to get into that story, but I just want to take a moment to acknowledge it's not ever just one experience, right? Like you can
Absolutely not.
see from everything you're sharing, and that's why I wanted us to go into it. Like there's so many different pieces and belief
Mhm.
systems and, you
Mhm.
know, identities that you already had and like parts of
Mhm.
yourself, because we had a lot come out here about your teenage self, right, which I'm sure needed a lot of healing. So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that even though we're going to get into this very specific story that, you know, transformed your identity and how that led you to who you are today, because you know it also led you into the work you do today. It led you to experiencing your own rebirth and facilitating others through that. And at the same time, you know, it wasn't just that one thing. So I just wanted to really acknowledge that before we go deeper into the story. But um the other piece, yeah,
I
you
want to
want
say one more thing because I think it's beautiful that you highlighted that because it's never been highlighted in that way. And I've been on plenty of podcasts.
to.
And you're right. The multitude of threads that lead up to this one situation that completely altered my life, and there's so many other, right? Because there's the essay that I experienced when I was a child. There's the lack of seeing my father during the school year when I would be waiting at the window being like, oh, he's coming, and I would just wait for hours with my coat on. And there was that, you know, disconnect from the first man that was supposed to love me. And there's so many layers to it, but thank you for, you know, acknowledging that because I don't think it's acknowledged enough in the healing space and on the internet. I think that, you know, it's a tricky space and people, you know, want to do obviously sexual trauma and my experience being trafficked is something that everybody wants to hear, right?
Mm.
And it's interesting, but the things
Drama,
that lead
right?
up to it and the root causes are so much more important. So thank you for honoring that and like spending time to dive into that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's important to mention. And yeah, what I want to go into next is actually, I want you kind of hinted um, at it already, but I wanted to ask you this before we get into the story itself. So you already had a gut feeling. You already felt like something was off before anything even happened. So can you speak to that a little bit before we go into the story
Yeah,
itself.
absolutely. I met this young man on a bus and he was charming, but there were so many bodily responses that I ignored because I wasn't in tune with myself as like a 19-year-old. I was just like, kind of like winging it. I didn't know what intuition was. All these spiritual experiences that I was having, I was kind of like being like, that's not real. I don't,
Mm.
spirit doesn't speak to me. All the
Ah.
things that I was seeing, yeah, I was like that. I made that up, right? Because I've been told my entire life really, like, you don't really know who you are, you're confused. So I just thought that these things that I was feeling were confusion and just me battling myself. So I met this young man on a bus, and even his physical appearance, like, something about it was like, I shouldn't. But then he was like, hey, you should come to the city with us. You can hang out. I'm gonna wine and dine you. And I was like, well, I don't want to go back home. So, like, I'm just gonna go with him. But first I'm gonna go hang out with my dad. And that's what I did. I went and hung out with my dad. I went to like some political event. And then I had him meet me and pick me up from there. But yeah, everything about it in my body. Like, when I say I'm so in tune to it now, my body was vibrating. My body was like, please, no. And I was like, well, I don't want to go home because I'm going to put my hands on my mom's baby dad. And like, I would have go to jail. And I was like, this has to be better than jail. This has to be better than going back and dealing with him. And I really, in hindsight, and don't get me wrong, I feel like this is going to come back and haunt me because I've said on the internet before, like, everything that I've gone through has intricately led me into this beautiful person that I am, right? And yes, it has. And fuck, like, where I sit at now, I wish I did not. I wish I went
Yeah.
back and dealt with my mom's baby dad. I really wish I did, because the amount of trauma and the amount of residual trauma that came with the experience from this young man is like, nobody deserves it. Nobody
Yeah.
ever
Yeah.
deserves that. And it's affected each and every relationship in my life, and has ruined some relationships in my life that I wish, could have played out differently. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because, I'm a big believer that many things can coexist at the same time. Like you can be grateful for who you have become, and maybe you wouldn't have become this person without the experience. And you can also acknowledge that fucking sucked, and I wish I didn't have to experience this, and I wish my life had played out differently. And the thing is, a lot of the stories that I share or that I interview people about on this podcast are rooted in some sort of trauma, because that tends to be what shifts our identity the most, because it
mm-hmm.
has this big impact and we get to decide what we do with it, right? And we're going to get into this later when we talk more about how you healed from it. But I love your phrasing of turning your trauma into a triumph, because
Mm-hmm.
like we can choose, we may feel like, I wish I didn't have to experience this because no one deserves this, just like you say. And when these are the cards that you've been dealt with, and this is what happened, and you can't change what happened, what do you do with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's more what it's about. So yeah, I love that you acknowledge that.
I didn't have the tools that I have now. So just like the people that raised me did the best with the tools that they had, I literally was doing the best with the tools I had. So I'm not even, there's no malice towards that version of me. There's no
Yeah.
anger, and also I am continuously healing still. I think that in the online space there's this, like, pedestal to hit where it's like you're healed and you've made it, and like, no, I am 39 years old and I am continuously healing from different versions and different parts of different traumas in my life. And I think that this is a continuous journey on purpose. I think that while we're living, we are healing, and I think that when we're done living, then we're healed and we come back we go back to from which what we came. So I think
Mhm.
while we're here, it's a privilege to continue feeling and healing and going to the depths, and not, reaching a pedestal and being like, all right, cool, I'm done. And it's like, girl, you still alive, you still have work to do. And not in the sense of being one of those people that are like, I'm gonna go into the shadows every day. Like, I ain't talking about that. Like, have a good fucking time. But while we're breathing, we're also healing. And it's like, there is no destination. It's a journey. So, like, enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. And yeah, I love that you have that compassion for your past self, because it's true. You did the best you could with
The
with the
tools I
awareness
had.
and the tools you had in that moment.
Absolutely.
But it's also like interesting to look back and to see, hey, that there was something in hindsight. I can see there was something that I felt. And it's actually interesting. Obviously, you work with trauma. I also do some trauma work, and um, a lot of my work is very somatic and body based. And although, that's not necessarily what I interview people about here, every interview thus far, and you just voiced the same with whatever the experience was that's shared. There was always something with, like, I felt something in my body. I just didn't listen
Mhm.
to it, right? Because maybe I didn't know how to, or I didn't really know what it meant. So, yeah, it's super interesting how, our body or our intuition tells us, and then we still sometimes have to go through it. So,
Yeah.
um, let's go into the actual experience. So, we don't need to go into all of the details, of
Yeah,
course,
to
but
not people can use their imagination,
yeah.
right? That's something beautiful that I want to mention that too, and thank you for saying that. It was mentioned at this wealth summit that I just recently came back from, for survivors of DV, of trafficking, of emotional abuse, and what have you. And this beautiful young lady, her name is Roxane Gay. She's like a famous author, and I didn't know, this was my first time meeting her. And she was talking about her book and how she writes about her trauma. And she was like, somebody wrote a response like, oh, I wanted more detail. And she was like, use your imagination. And I was like, oh, yeah. She was like, I don't need to use violence. Like, I can tell my story without using certain words. And I just thought that that was beautiful. And that's like, ugh, what a storyteller she is, to be able to hold space for that, but also like allow the autonomy to be like, use your imagination. So thank you for saying that. I just wanted to I had to say that.
Yeah. No, like it's people are all about the drama, but we want to see the arc, right? We want to see the
Yeah.
arc here, and how you healed from it most of all. But yeah, let's go a little bit into the experience itself. Maybe you can just like give a brief version of what actually happened. You don't need to go into the details, and we don't need to go into like how you came out of it yet, but what was the rough arc of that experience? How did it start? You met this
Yeah.
person on the bus. What
Hmm.
happened from there?
Met this person on a bus, wined and dined me.
Love
I pretty
bombed
much
you.
say that
Basically,
again.
love bombed you
Yeah,
basically.
at a 19-year-old, my 19-year-old version calls it wine and dine.
Yeah.
But yeah, love bombed me. Wasn't aware of that either as a
Mhm.
19-year-old. Didn't even know what the fuck that meant.
Yeah.
Um, Spent maybe, and time wise, I'm 39. That was when I was like 19. So my
20 years
time
ago.
may be off. So I'm gonna guesstimate. I don't know. Did that for like a week or two straight. And I just thought I was like living the best life ever. I was
Mhm.
like, I don't have to go home. I don't have to deal with my mom's baby dad. This is amazing. At the time, I was like a major pothead, so I was just smoking weed every day, like eating great food, just relaxing, living my best life. So I thought.
Yeah.
And at the time, somebody that he was close to was already pimping out girls.
Mhm.
And this person that he was close to kept telling him to do it to me. And he had this like apprehension at first. And I don't know what happened, but one night he snapped. And it was the most violent night I've ever experienced in my life. And the amount of fear that was in my body shook me enough in my being to do whatever he told me to do. there were threats against like my mother and my sibling, and what this man did to me, I believed him. And the question, and Lorena, I love you, first of all, because the way you just looked to the side was giving
I
like, girl, if I ever find this man.
yeah. And also like I felt that in my body when you said it, although, like just from the energy of your words, like I got goosebumps, but like not in the good way, like I got
Yeah,
like I felt like a pulling back in my body
yeah,
where like that, yeah, I felt the fear basically. So yeah, if I
yeah,
ever find him,
yeah.
I live
off,
wings,
off the record, off the record. um, it just, and I love that we can also laugh in moments like this. This is why I fucking love you as a person and as a healer and as a mentor, because like we live in duality, and like this shit, yes, it's dark and it's fucked up, and also like we get to keep, our lightness about us, but he shook me and put fear in me in a way that I've never experienced, and I vow to never experience ever again in my life. And he forced me into doing things that I wouldn't wish against anybody on this earth. Nobody ever.
Just to backtrack a little, so he basically love bombed you for about a week, and was it after
A week
that
or
week,
two.
a week or two?
Yeah.
Was it right after that this unfolded, or was it a
Yeah.
bit longer? Right
Uh-uh.
after?
It was pretty much immediate.
Right. Okay.
Um, yeah. Even like went home in between those 2 weeks, like to go get more clothes. And because he was buying me clothes, like I didn't really have to do it. He was like buying me clothes, like treat, like love, like super manipulative. And that was how he was able to see what my mom looks like, and see that she was sick, and see that I had a younger sibling. So all of these things, I think were like intentionally done. Even taking me to my house, like my house was far. I lived in the woods next to a lake. Like I lived in the boonies.
Yeah, so he made sure that
um,
you had fear, and you had almost like a dependency of like having
yes,
to do whatever he wanted you to do.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, and yeah, he forced me to do just unquestionable things, and I did them because I was afraid. And
Yeah.
this question comes up, or has come up in the past, and I always get like, well, why didn't you leave? And it makes me
Oh,
roll my eyes at this point, because it's like, if you listen to what I just said about the foulest night or day I've ever experienced in my life as a 19-year-old, based on everything you now know about me, that will never be a question if you
yeah.
are my person. If you
I think it
are,
could never be a question anyway, because like you know you were scared. Like how can you not, like what else would you have done? I think it's important to mention when we talk about like trauma responses as well, um that they are all kind of sacred, like I think we sometimes demonize being in a trauma response.
yes,
Like in that
yes,
case, that was a fawn response, right? Like you went
yes.
into a people pleasing response because that in that moment kept you, and not just you but also your family, safe. So yeah, you can, people can go like, well, why didn't you leave? Because that was a terrible situation. But what made you safe in that moment for that time being, based on your nervous system and also based on the circumstances, was to do whatever he said, even though it was, not what you wanted to do and not what made you safe long term. But in
Mm-hmm.
that moment, that was the only thing that you could do, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
we need to stop demonizing those trauma
Yes,
responses.
yes. And what we've spoken about up until this moment has been a people pleasing teenager that
Yes.
was doing, yes, literally what she was taught. That was my innate response. Like, oh shit, okay, cool. Yeah, whatever you want me to do, as long as you're not going to hurt me anymore and hurt my family. I was like, if I don't have to go through another night of that ever again, and I have to just rewind a little bit, because it wasn't one night of that, because
Yeah.
I didn't fold immediately. There were like multiple nights of that until I folded.
Slowly breaking you down.
Yes. It
Yeah.
was, oh, okay, I'm going to do it again. And although it wasn't as intense as the first time, it was enough for me to be like, bro, I can't, I'm just going to do whatever he says.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there, again, use your imagination. I'm in a room for multiple days. Like, just use your imagination. It was the most probably, and I hate to say this because that's what I was about to say, but I don't. That was highly traumatic.
Yeah.
The being able to get away from him and having to do the things that he told me I had to do was like my reprieve. I was like, cool, if I could just get away from and not have to do that, cool, I'll do whatever you need me to do. Cause stop hurting me,
Yeah.
actually. Yes.
So, whew, wow. What moments? Because I don't want you to like go into too much detail because, as you say, use your imagination. I think we all know
Yeah.
what sex trafficking means.
Yes.
But are there any moments that stand out to you the most vividly from that period that, yeah, when you look back or when you think?
Yeah. Yep. And girl, I wish you could see it to my mind right now because every time you ask me a question, I literally see what I am going to speak about. Me and you just have such a synergy. I just love it. Yeah, there was. And it's going to surprise most people because it has nothing to do with the trafficking.
I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I promise the second half will be even better. If you have been enjoying this conversation and you want to embark on your own self-concept transformation, then download my free self-concept mastery blueprint to get started with your own identity evolution. The link is in the show notes. Now let's get back to the interview.
But I had met what I now call an earth angel. I had met somebody. I went to go buy weed, of all things. This earth angel was a drug dealer. I went to go buy weed. And this man was prophesizing to me in a way that I could hear for the first time, in a way that my entire body got goosebumps. And I knew that everything he was saying was true and that I needed to listen to him. He was like, you're not supposed to be out here. You're a goddess. You're a queen. Your birthright is rich. Your birthright is freedom. If you keep coming out here, you're going to die. And I remember being like, can I just get the weed? But like, I hear you. Can you just give me the nickel bag of weed, please? So I can go get high and do what I got to do. And also by that time, I had smartened up a little bit. And I had learned that if I just hid in one of the casinos and played the penny slots, I would make the amount of money that I needed to make every night to kind of keep him off of my ass. So I was already in this transition of figuring out a system because you put me anywhere, I'm going to figure out a system and I'm going to figure out how to survive and then thrive and do something different. Anywhere you put me, clearly. And he was like, I don't care that you're hiding. I was like, bro, I'm good. Like, I'm not really even having to do it unless I lose my money on the slot machine. And he was like, you're not listening to me. You're going to die. And I need you to stop coming out here. And I remember being like, what? And he was like, matter of fact, come back here. So this earth angel
was like, who are you? Stranger.
In this place. Now this is where my spiritual awakening happens, right? My first conscious one, because I feel like we have them when we're children. We're just not aware and we don't have the words and the tools to put two and two together.
Yeah.
But
or maybe we come onto this earth already being awakened and we just forget over time.
that part, and we're just not, we're not aware. This was my first awareness. I feel like my first real awareness as an adult, because as a child I saw shit and played with shit and all of that, and I was told that those were just my imaginary friends. But anywho, this man walked me into, and I know you're spiritual, so I can say whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah, it's fine.
We walked into another realm.
Okay.
And this, I've been into this city 50 million times since then, and this does not exist. This place does not exist. It didn't exist after it happened. There was a portal that opened, and he walked me into this portal, and Me being who I am and my life lesson number being a 7, a karmic 7, I only learn through experience. I have to experience something in real time and be able to feel it for me to understand and understand anything. So this earth angel robbed me and told me, give me all your stuff. I'm going to have your stuff at the end of the street. Do not come back out here or you're not going to make it. And I was like, wow, he's prophesizing and he robs me. Now I have $5 for the nickel bag. That's all I had in my phone. So he didn't take much from me, but he took enough from me for me to like kind of be like, oh shit, I need to listen to him. Something is going to happen to me if I keep coming out here.
Wow. Okay,
So
can we just like pause here? Because I
yeah,
kind of want to go back before we go, because I reckon we're now gonna get into the story of how you actually broke out of it. Is that right?
almost, yeah.
Almost. Okay. Let's go back just a moment, because I feel like the story we're now getting into is like the shift, kind of when you
Yes.
almost like you regained your power and you took your power back, and you had this experience of I mean, not immediately, I know, but you had this
Yeah.
you had this experience of, through something external or someone external, kind of like getting at least a glimpse of, wait, maybe something else is possible. So, but before we're getting into that identity shift, the trauma itself, or the experience of the sex trafficking itself, I would assume, on top of the trauma you've experienced before, that challenged or broke down your sense of identity, or your sense of who you were as well. Can you speak a little bit, before we get into the rupture of how you came out of it? Can you speak a little bit about how your sense of identity changed through the trauma or through the experience?
Of the up until that moment
Yeah,
or
up until the moment, like from the primarily from the how he treated you, the person who trafficked you, and that whole experience, because he was like slowly breaking you down, right? Like he was
yes.
slowly over time creating so much fear, and because you didn't start feeling like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this, whatever. That wasn't your attitude. He was slowly breaking you down. What did that do to your sense of self or your sense of identity?
Oh, girl, I hated myself.
Yeah.
I hated myself. So when this man was saying these things to me, like I'm a queen, it's your birthright, you're beautiful, I mean, pouring into me in a way that actually hasn't ever been replicated. When I say prophesizing, I wish that I had a camera and I was like into that shit back then, because I would have taped it, but he would have my phone anyway, so it didn't matter. But when he said it, it was like jarring to my system. It was like, how does he like? Do you see what I am? Like, I clearly am on the street. Like, you see what I'm tricking. Like, what do you mean? And he was like, I don't give a fuck about none of that. Like, this is not your birthright. You are meant for so much more. And he started like telling me all these things I would experience. And like, I got full body goosebumps right now. You can't see it, but my whole body is lit up. And that was like a moment of, I don't want to say like reprieve, but it was like just that little sliver of what was possible.
Mm.
And again, from a drug dealer.
Yeah.
That little glimpse. And I was like, bro, if I keep coming out here, I'm not going to make it. And I was like, then I was so obsessed with my younger sibling back then, and I still am. And all I could think about was like, damn, I'll never see them again. And I'll never see my mom. And I was like, cool, I got to figure out like how to get the fuck out of here. Like, I gotta figure it out. So it I don't know, it lit a fire like in my, I can't explain it, and I know you can feel what I'm saying,
Mhm.
but it just like lit something in me. And I know most people or some people won't get that, but that was like my light bulb moment, but it took some time to get out of that. Like
Yeah.
this was like the
The
first
first
spark.
glimpse. Yeah. Like
Yeah, the first spark.
it's like he gave you the mirror, almost, like of something else is possible, and it kind of like it created a spark, right?
Yes,
That's what it sounds like.
beautifully put. Thank you for saying it like that, Lorena. Beautifully put.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, tell me about how the spark became a fire, And what happened from there? Like, how did you actually break out of it? And let's, sure, go into the circumstances and, like
I
what
won't go
actually
into
happened.
all the details, but I'll give you
Yeah.
as short a version as I possibly can.
Yeah.
So, yes, he did take my stuff. All my clothes were folded at the end of the street, which is I thought was weird because I was like, why would he fold my clothes? He was an earth angel. That's why he was treating me with the respect that I deserved, but I had to learn my lesson in that way. And I know that's going to fuck some people's heads up, but whatever. A couple days later, I was in the casino, came out the casino, we experienced another traumatic event where I almost lost my life. I'm not going to get into the details. You can use your imagination. Somebody was trying to harm him, and I was caught in the crossfire, and I almost lost my life. And I ran to hide. And when the person that was trafficking me came into the place that I was hiding, he was shot 4 times with no exit wound. And the bullets were just ricocheting in his body.
What?
Yes.
What?
Yes. 4 times. Which is also, I'm a numbers girly, but I ain't gonna get into that. That's not where it ends. So wait, it gets a little trickier from here. He wasn't alive, and then he was alive. He kept losing his life and coming back to life, losing his life and coming back to life. And I stayed with him at the hospital after that experience because of the grooming, because of the fear, because of everything that had happened. I stayed to make sure this person that was harming me was okay. He was no longer strong enough to make me go out and do that anymore, but I didn't realize that at first. It took me, I still went out maybe a couple more times, and then I remember one day he like couldn't move, and I was like, oh shit. I was like, wait a minute, I can beat your ass. Like, and I was like, oh, I'm not going back out there. And then that moment I like started meticulously planning my escape. I started going around my dad more and hanging out with my family more and just doing different things, but still living in this house with this apartment with this person. I eventually started a business. I was selling water filters in the city of Camden, and I was killing it because I had the mindset that time is money. So I took that mindset that he forced into me and the fear that he forced into me and shifted it to a different business and killed it. Moved out, got my own apartment, was doing great, and he followed me to my apartment with a dog and did the same thing in a different way.
Wow.
So then I lived in this environment and hostility and more violence and more fear. And I had another one of those experiences, but not with an outside person, just with my inner voice one night. I had been driving home before my 21st birthday, like 3 days before my 21st birthday. And I had a deal with the Board of Education that would have made me, I don't know, back then like $50,000 residual income every year, and would have made me like a hot 140K in that meeting. And on my way back the night before, I heard, go change your PIN to your card. Now at this time, Lorena, I had stopped paying the rent. I had stopped paying the electric bill for months. I stopped paying the gas bill. I stopped paying everything because I was like, hey, I can't survive like this. And like, if we get evicted, he got to go back where he came from. And I got to go to my mom's. And my mom sure as hell ain't let him come there. So for months, I had just tried to think about what I could do to get away from him. And I just stopped paying everything. Messed up my credit back then, but it was my only way out.
Yeah.
So on my way home,
really smart.
Thank you, girl. It's again, I was being guided. That wasn't a thought that came like it was like, hey, stop paying your bills. And I was like, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So I changed my PIN on my way home before this meeting the next day because he would take my card from me and go buy weed because I stopped smoking, I stopped drinking, I stopped doing everything that he did. So he had to like pretty much survive on his own. He could no longer leech off of me. And I was hiding money in other places. Like I had just gotten so smart, but also like, who wants to live like that? That was highly traumatic. And long story short, the next day he woke up, he knew I had my meeting, And he traumatized me and tortured me for hours, to whereas I was going to be like an hour late to $140,000 meeting, and you don't show up an hour late to
Yeah.
$140,000. You show up an hour early.
Yeah.
And he took everything. He took my clothes, bleached them, was, violent, all the things. And I remember him like putting me in the car and trying to get me to take my money out, and then taking me to this place. And he was like, I'm going to unalive you. And I was like, bro, at this point, do whatever the fuck you gotta do, because you already killed my spirit. I remember
Oh,
looking at him like, just do it. At this point, I was like, and if you do it, everybody I love is going to look for you. I don't know where this power came from, but I was like, my daddy's going to look for you. My brothers are going to look for you. I was like, I'm going to haunt you. I was like saying all these things to him. And he just looked at me, and he backed up, and he dropped me off in front of the house and left. Took my car and left. I don't know where he went.
wow.
But I called my dad to come get me, and we walked through the apartment. This is late. These events. This is the same day he came to get me, but like a couple days later, we walked through the apartment, and my dad's walking through the apartment, and he looks like he wants to cry and throw up at the same time. And he's like, "Do you want anything out of here?" And I remember going into like a file cabinet, getting my social security card and my birth certificate, and being like, "Nah, I got what I need," and went to leave. And he was like, "No clothes," and I was like, "They're all bleached. Like everything's ripped up." And he had just like, Lorena, there was so much that happened in that apartment that day that was just like, yeah, no, I'm not living my life like this. And that led up to, that apartment and that day. There were so many other instances and so many spiritual things that saved me in that apartment. And I was like, yeah, we're done. And
Yeah.
I've seen him. I saw him one time after that, and I inflicted violence. I did the violence to him, and he deserved it. And then I saw him two times years apart. Three times years apart. And the last time I saw him, I could see it on his face, like just the regret, the pain, and he was like, "Well, can I get your information?" And I was like, and I like pulled off, like, "Boy, no, can't get my information." And mm, part of me wishes to never see him, like ever. And there's, I just I don't want to ever see that person
Yeah.
again in
No,
my life.
that's like not part of your life anymore. That's like,
Ever.
yeah.
Not even in, how people are like, "Oh, forgiveness." Like, I don't forgive that person. I
No,
don't
and you don't
I
need to.
I don't forgive that person, and I feel at peace knowing that you can never eat the same. Your body doesn't function the way it's supposed to, because now you have this injury that you deserve at the end of the day, karmically. Yes.
I love like how we moved from like you like he broke you down to you it ignited this fire in you.
Yeah.
What a crazy story. I know there's like
Girl.
so much more that happened, but
Girl.
that's we don't even need to go into it.
We don't.
I I want to talk about like the aftermath, right? Like after all of this happened, and I also love how you spoke about, it's almost like you had a voice inside of you, like your subconscious started bringing up your own power, but then also you have these external circumstances and mirror that kind of like this divine intervention that guided you. But I want to talk a little bit about, before we, finish this off, about how did you even begin healing from this
Mhm.
experience? Because, there's so much trauma in that chapter alone, in those like couple years or so, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had everything leading up to that. So how did you begin healing?
To be honest, I didn't at first. I
Mm.
just didn't. I did not have the awareness of what that even meant. I literally started talking to somebody else, and they pointed out each and everything that I did, and they were like, "Why do you do that? And why do you do that?" And this person was, I think, pivotal in the start of my healing journey, because
Right.
he he was like, I don't understand why you do this. And I was like, oh, I had to tell him what I went through. And
Yeah.
when I told him, he was like, well, where's he at? Because, and I was like, no. He was like, nah, where is he? Because absolutely not. And I was like, oh, that was wrong to like
Yeah.
actually hear it from another man that was wanting to, actually be my boyfriend at the time. And I was like, okay, cool. And then so something happened in my life that sent me down another rabbit hole of pain. And I like turned to something to numb the pain.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And while I was numbing the pain, one of my friends who is no longer Earthside asked me to take her to this massage school. And I was like, fine, I'll take you. I was still doing the water filters at the time. And I was like, I'll take you, but I'm sitting in the car. Like, I don't want to hear that shit. And her son was in the car with me and he was freaking out. And I brought him in and I was like, we're just going to sit in here. And they're talking about how much you can make with the massage. And I like kind of put my head around the corner and I was like, you can make that much? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, cool. I'm just going to listen from here. And then they were like, you could help people with MS. And my mom had MS and I just sat down. I sat down and I was like, cool, sign me up. And they were like, the money didn't get you. I was like, I'm making good money. Like, I want to help my mom. And I feel like that meeting, I got goosebumps. Like, I feel like,
Take your
I'm
time.
sorry.
Take your time.
I feel like my friend in that moment saved my life because it put me on the trajectory of where I'm at now. Because had I not ever went to massage school, I wouldn't have been able to go back to the city that I was trafficked in and had been named by everybody in the room the best massage therapist. But I wouldn't have been able to afford the healing and the lifestyle that I lived. And that is what started, I would say that's what started it. And then I just found myself at book clubs at like 23 with all these 70-year-old women. I found myself in Tai Chi classes with 80-year-old women. I was always the youngest in the room, but I had already lived a long and hard life. So I felt comfortable around all these senior citizens. And I just wanted wisdom at that point. Anything I could do to grab wisdom and to learn. And then like a year later, I met my life coach. And then, it keeps going. I went to sound bowl classes. I did all of this back in like 2008. And I feel like that was, what led me to who I am now. But what really, was the catalyst was, me being trafficked and me meeting that man that spoke life into me while also trying to sell me a nickel bag.
Wow, that's so powerful. How like I think it kind of showcases it's not like this one thing. Like I did this one thing and it healed me. It's
It was like,
it's a roller coaster and you get pulled back into your past and then you try again and you try different things and you have people who help you. You can't do it alone and there's so much that goes into it. So but what an inspiring story. I mean, you're such a powerful, inspiring
can,
person and so
can I
many
share?
people. Hmm?
I'm sorry. I'm hearing one thing to share.
Yeah,
Like
go for
really,
it.
really important. I did a lot of therapy during that time
Hmm.
that was so damaging
Yeah.
to that experience. A lot of the therapists that I met wanted to know the details and wanted to me to just sit there, and they were almost like, it was almost like a thing, like a, you know what I mean? Like a, you went through that? Like, let me hear all about it. And
Oh,
it was so damaging. And I just want to be clear, my life coach is who helped me the most during that time. And I went to multiple therapists. And this isn't me bashing therapy. And there are just so many different modalities and options available versus being re-traumatized in that sense, because I was so close to it. That was like 4 years, that it had just happened. and there was so much rawness to it. So to speak about it the way I speak about it now, it just isn't the same. And I just wanted to touch on that because I feel like I left that out. Because there were, dips, like you said, in my healing, and that was one of the dips that set me back, I feel like.
Wow. Yeah, I'm really glad you shared that. And I totally get it because this is the thing that, I experienced this myself in therapy, and I hear this from a lot of clients also, and I'm sure it's like the same for you because
Absolutely.
therapy can be great. Like, we're not bashing therapy here,
At
but
all.
like a lot of therapy, you're just talking in circles over like your childhood trauma and all the things,
Mhm.
and it doesn't you're re-traumatizing yourself if you talk about it
Mhm.
again and again and again and you don't process it. And I always tell my clients that you don't even need to share the details. Like, I don't need to know
Mhm.
the details. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
helpful to have context and awareness, but that's not what heals you, right? It's the processing and the feeling and the integrating and, moving it through your body and making
Mhm.
changes and becoming a different version of yourself. That's what heals it. It's not the, talking it to death.
Absolutely. So beautifully said.
Yeah. So with that, you're now super passionate about intergenerational trauma and guiding women
Mhm.
through healing this, right? Can you share a bit more about how this passion awoke in you and how you got to teaching this in your coaching business now?
Absolutely. Like the question that you asked at the top of the call,
Mhm.
what led you up into this moment? So it wasn't the trafficking, right? It was the lack of being seen, the lack of feeling loved, the always having to put a mask on and people please for the adults around me so that they would love me and so that they would care for me. Me learning that being of service was how I received love. And all of these moments that shaped the little girl that even allowed something like that to happen or that put me in the position for me to experience any of the trauma I experienced, that's who I want to serve. That's who I'm passionate about because I know that if we could get to the root and
Mhm.
we can rip out and rebirth and rewire all of those limiting beliefs and those things that you were told and those stories and those lies that are not true and that you inherit from the women or the men in your family, you could literally change the trajectory of your life. Could you imagine if I had a me when I was like 15? If I had a me when I was 15, none of that would have this I would be different. I would be completely different. And I love who I am as a person. So I'm not negating that. And also, I want to make sure that anybody that has been through any of those things, not feeling seen, not feeling loved, not feeling heard, just inheriting the trauma that your mama carried, that your mom carried, that your great grandmom, because we all know that we are in our grandmother's womb. So everything that your grandmom is experiencing, you're getting
Mhm.
that through your bloodline. And if there was a lot of trauma that she experienced, like unfortunately, I was born into three
DNA.
generations. I
Yeah.
was born into three generations of DV, SA, all these things. No wonder I experienced what I experienced, you know? If
Yeah.
if if we can rewire that, rebirth it and rip that out at the root, oh, we could just be free and not live at these shackles of our past and our ancestors' past. And we could literally gift back 10 generations because in doing this work, you're healing back 10 generations and you're healing forward 10. And like, my niece and my babies and they're not going to experience an ounce of hurt that I did, especially not to that multitude, but like you're going to know you're a beautiful little girl, you're going to be seen, you're going to feel like you're heard, like all of those things. I am practicing generational healing and I am just committed to helping women transmute their fucking trauma into their motherfucking triumph. That's just what I'm here to do, clearly.
I love that. I felt that fire in my heart as you were as you were talking about it. And I also want to say, like, what happened to you, like this whole sex trafficking experience, that's not your fault by any means. And you pointed out something really powerful here. You were a people pleaser before that happened, and that was
Mhm.
just another manifestation of people pleasing. And
Mhm.
this is what I always say when I talk about how your reality mirrors your self-concept, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
who you think you are is what you experience, and you might experience it in different forms. So the exact experience that you get, it's not that you called that in or you manifested that exact experience, but it was shaped by
Yeah,
who you think you are. So I just wanted to
absolutely.
make a little note of that, that, you know, it wasn't your
Beautiful.
fault. You didn't like manifest this, but
Mm-mm.
also, you know, the trajectory of your life, it fit into that, if that
It
makes sense.
did. It did. And thank you for that reflection. I didn't, and I know I didn't. And it's funny you say that because you are who you think you are. And
Mhm.
like now I was just the other day I taught a class and I was driving home and I looked in the mirror and I was like, bitch, I am exactly who the fuck I think I am. Like I am because my again, like you said, my outside is reflecting that. The opportunities that I have, the clients that I work with, the life that I'm living, like I am exactly who I think I am. And back then, I was who I thought I was too. So it's beautiful. That was such a beautiful reflection, Lorena. I just fucking love you.
Oh, I love you too. Okay, so final question, and then we're gonna do a little quick fire
Okay.
closing ritual, which I think you'll really adore. But
It's a
the
beautiful
final
idea.
question before that is, how did this whole experience, and we're talking about the entire arc, how did this shift your identity? Like, who are you now?
Mm.
You know, who did you become through all of this, including the healing thus far?
um, I mean, I became the trauma mama, literally, the rebirth initiator, literally. This through this arc of trauma and healing that I've gone through, I've become a safe space, number one, for myself, and
Hmm.
for that those versions of me that weren't heard, like they are heard and they get to express themselves fully. And I don't care how anybody feels about it, especially the people in my family. I am very clear and direct, and with love, but also with all this sass. And I became the trauma mama. That's what my clients call me. They call me their spiritual doula, their trauma mama.
I
I
love
call
that.
myself the rebirth initiator because I
Trademark that shit also.
I already did.
No, that's what I mean. You trademarked that
I
shit, as
I
you should.
facilitate a safe space, but I can only do that because I have created that space for myself first. So I literally am a safe space for women to come and seen and be heard. And when they call me trauma mama, it's also because, like, I still come with all this sass with my clients. I am very much like, girl, I hear you, I see you, and I am not like the coddle type. I'm more of a nurturer. I'm not like, I'm gonna do this for you. This is nah. Like, you're gonna do it, and I'm going to walk with you while you do it. I'm not above you. You're not below me. We're walking this journey together, and I am here to guide you. And also, I see this, and this, and this. So yeah, it's allowed me to be this powerful, expressive, expansive, loud, in your face, I don't give a fuck if it offends you version of me. And I love that for me
Yeah.
because I am who my younger self needed when she was little. And like, like, that's it. I got goosebumps and I could probably cry.
Oh, that's allowed here. Oh, I love that. I love that. And I love, like, I feel like we're so aligned with, but we have very different methods and, a different focus with how we work
Mhm.
with clients. But I feel like our beliefs and our, um, like how we approach things and how we approach trauma very much aligns. And I think that's just like such a beautiful, like, it's almost like a mirror a little bit. It's like,
Yes, it is.
yeah, I'm really grateful to be connected to you. And yeah,
Me too.
great. So to close, I always like to ask each guest three questions. And
Okay.
one of these questions is about the past, one is about the present, and one is about what's just beyond the horizon.
Mm.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay, so the question about the past is, if the version of you from a year ago watched your life for a day, or if a year ago doesn't resonate and you want further back, that's fine too. What would surprise them the most?
um I'll say between a year and two. Um that I am not crying every day.
Wow.
Yeah. My mom transitioned 3.5 years ago. And I think for the first year and a half, I cried every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that version of me would be like, what? We don't cry every day? Like,
Yeah.
and not like I when I was about to cry here, happy tears, right?
Yeah.
Like I cry happy tears a lot now. And yeah, I just didn't, I wasn't there like 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Yeah.
learn to walk with your grief.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, so for the present, if you were cast in a film as your current self, what would the genre be?
Oh, shit. I don't know, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay, so when I taught my dance class, twerk breathe namaste sis, that's also trademarked. So Capricorn-esque of me.
Yeah.
The young lady who was getting content for me, she was like, your life is like a movie. And I didn't understand what she said. And she sent me videos, and now I understand. It's like, I'm funny, so maybe a comedy, but I'm not trying to be funny. I guess I'm naturally funny, or I don't know. Maybe like a spiritual comedy.
I love that. Or maybe
Slash drama.
maybe it's a musical. If you have so much.
Oh, oh yes. No, it's definitely a musical because when people say words, I just sing songs, and I know they're like, "Oh my god!" Like if somebody says Texas, I'll sing a specific song every time, and my friends just look at me like, and I'm like, "Girl, what?"
Twerk to it. One day we're gonna meet and we're gonna twerk together.
Yes.
Manifesting this. Beautiful. Love that. Would watch that movie. Then the becoming, the future. If the next version of you was a landscape, what scenery would you be walking into now?
Okay, so I don't know where this is in the world, but when I'm walking out of the French doors that are white, very minimalistic, very textured walls or like stucco stuff, like I see just this never ending like body of water, and it's so clear, and there's like this beautiful pool, and there is like beautiful chic expensive patio furniture, and there's a fireplace over here, so it's giving like rich auntie and like I don't know, somewhere on the other side of the world. Yeah, that's what I saw. That was
I
nice.
see that for you too. I love
Yeah,
that.
that was nice.
Thank you so much, Sharice. This was really powerful. I'm so excited to share this with the world. And I
Yeah.
will link all of your platforms and your program and all of the things in the show notes for anyone who wants to connect with you or wants to work with you. But please let people know where they can find you in case they want to contact you or.
You
Yeah.
can find me on the gram at Sharice Tareva. Everything is Sharice Tareva. TikTok, Facebook, if you're into that kind of thing. My website is www.sharicetareva.com. And, drop me a DM, drop me an email. I'm always open to connect. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thank you so much, my love.
Yeah.
And yeah, I will chat to you next time.
Yay.
I absolutely love having these conversations because every story really reminds us that you can use any experience for your evolution, not just your breakdown. It also shows us that transformation is never linear. It's personal, it's messy, and it's what makes us human. I'm Lorena Schuth, and this was Identity Evolution. Come and find me on Instagram at Lorena Schuth, linked in the show notes, and DM me and share your key takeaway from this episode with me. I would love to know. You'll also find guest links and details in the show notes if you want to connect more deeply with them. And you'll also find my self-concept coaching program, Recreate Yourself, if you are feeling ready for your identity shift. If this episode stirred something in you, make sure you subscribe and ideally leave a quick review and rating wherever you are listening or watching. This really, really helps more people find these stories of self-reinvention. See you next time.